In sports, no matter what team you're a fan of, there's always the good moments, the bad moments, and the ugly moments. For example, some ugly moments would be for Yankees fans, one of the many postseasons that they have choked away since their last World Series championship in 2009, or even the Houston Astros in the early 2010s having those 3 consecutive 100-loss seasons, making all hope seem gone. And then there's just seasons, or at least moments, that you tend to forget because of how historical they end up being until you go back and realize, oh yeah, that happened. And I'm an Orioles fan, and I grew up in the, with the 2000s Orioles, the, decade where the Orioles were complete and utter garbage, so there wasn't necessarily a lot of good, but if I had to choose one moment, it would either be John Means' no-hitter in 2021, or the Delman Young bases-clearing 3 RBI double in Game 2 of the 2014 ALDS that gave the Orioles the lead. Then there's bad moments like getting no-hit by Hisashi Iwakuma in 2015, and Clay Buchholz in 2007, who was just making his second start ever. But in that same year, in 2007, the ugly happened for the Orioles franchise. There's been a lot of ugly moments, but I think this takes the cake because since this happened, no other team has reached this mark at all. There's been a couple teams to come close. As it was just a typical August 22nd day in 2007, the Orioles, who came in at 58-65, were taking on the 54-70 Rangers. So 2 bad teams going at it, as this was the, pre-early 2010s Rangers teams, even though Ian Kinsler was here, Michael Young was here, they had David Murphy and Nelson Cruz. This was pre-steroids, and with Ian Kinsler, he was just a young player still trying to find his footing. Oh, and they also had Marlon Byrd too, so there was some solid hitters in this Ranger lineup, but none that would make you go, oh yeah, this team is an offensive juggernaut. Plus, the pitching matchup was Kassan Gabbard for Houston and Daniel Cabrera for Baltimore. 2 pitchers who are, well, not really known in high regard. I mean, I guess Daniel Cabrera was a highly touted prospect pitcher for the Orioles, but his main problem throughout his career was, yeah, he had flame-throwing stuff, but he could never get the walks down, so you were pretty much expecting a high-scoring game from the get-go. But entering the top of the 4th, Daniel Cabrera and the Orioles had the advantage. They were up 3-0. It looks like they were going to roll through this lineup, and then the wheels came off, and you probably already know what happens from here. Now, the Rangers scored 5 in the top of the 4th. Okay, no biggie. They had a big inning. It's only 5-3. The Orioles can still get back in this. And hey, the Rangers went scoreless in the 5th inning, so we're still keeping it close. Now in the 6th inning is when we kind of realized that today's just not gonna be our day. Base hit after base hit, error after error, and all of a sudden, the Texas Rangers put up 9 runs and saw themselves up 14-3. But entering the 8th inning with the score, you weren't necessarily thinking, okay, something of historical proportions is going to take place here. I mean, it's 14-3. Teams see these blowouts all the time, whether good or bad, you just have those games. 14-3 is not a score you want to see, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. But then everything started to turn even more, as in the last 2 innings, in the 8th and 9th, the Rangers put up 16 runs, meaning that they had a total of 30 runs.
And it's gone! A 3-run home run for Vasquez. Texas has put 30 runs on the board. 30 runs.
I know, Jim Hunter, I'm just as surprised as you are. To this day, this is the only time in modern MLB history that a team has put up 30 runs. And the fact that it took the Rangers 4 innings to even get going, and for the most part, they only scored in 4 of the 9 innings, making the most of those innings, of course, but they weren't necessarily going out there and just mashing the ball to start. This took them a while, and even in between some scoreless innings, they said, okay, now we're completely gonna, run away with this thing. And the funny thing is, this was game 1 of a doubleheader that was taking place that day. In this game, the Orioles somehow miraculously only used 4 different pitchers if you count Daniel Cabrera, as Brian Burris, Rob Bell, and Paul Shuey pitched out of the bullpen, and they all took hits. They were all not great. So at least they saved their bullpen for Game 2. And the even funnier thing about this is Kassan Gabbard went 6 solid innings, giving up 3 runs, and then Wes Littleton came in and pitched the final 3 innings. And by MLB rule, if a pitcher comes in for the starter and pitches the rest of the game without being relieved, then they are credited with the save. So Wes Littleton, to this day, is credited with his first and only save of his career in a game that the Texas Rangers won by 27 runs. You look at the offensive box score for Texas, every starter came to bat over 7 times, and every single hitter that started the game had multiple hits, and even Travis Metcalf, who came off the bench in his one of 2 at-bats, he hit a grand slam home run, giving him 4 RBIs. And the Rangers went a whopping 18 for 25 with runners in scoring position. Now, there has been a couple close calls with this record being tied or broken, as in 2022, the Blue Jays played the Red Sox in Fenway Park, and the Blue Jays put up 28 runs on Boston, and 2 years prior, in the COVID season in Atlanta, when the Braves hosted the Miami Marlins, the Braves put up 29 runs in a 29-9 victory, making them the official closest to the 30 runs that the Texas Rangers scored, but still nonetheless short. That 30-3 loss was also the start of a 9-game losing streak for the Orioles in another unforgettable year, and this win didn't do anything for Texas either. They were bad this year, as at the end of the year, their manager, Buck Showalter, hey, look at that familiar name, would be fired and replaced by Ron Washington, and that is when the Rangers started to slowly become one of the best teams in the American League, as just a couple of years later, in 2010, they would win their first American League pennant and get their first trip to a World Series. I remember tuning into this game as a fan. It was 14-3 in the 8th inning, so I kind of, was at the point in time, I was 9 years old, and back then my 9-year-old head was like, okay, it should be pretty simple to get 11 runs. I mean, Texas getting 14, maybe we can do something here. So I turned it back on in the top of the 8th, watched Texas get the 10 runs, and then kind of tuned out, and then realized by the end of it the next day, wait, they scored 30 runs on us. And to this day, to me, even though I've dealt with some dreadful moments, this is just the ugliest thing I've seen from the Orioles ever, considering we have not seen it again since from any other MLB team. Even though it's come close, we just haven't seen it. And when everybody says, oh, 30 runs in a game, they go, oh yeah, the Baltimore Orioles, they gave up 30 runs in a game, even though that was almost 17 years ago at this point. People still remember it, and it's just one of those embarrassing moments you kind of want to leave out of your head. But that's just what I think is the ugliest moment in my time watching Orioles baseball. What is the ugliest moment from your favorite team that you have seen in your lifetime? What did you witness from your team that made you just like go, oh, I hope this never happens again? Like, not even bad moments, just like an ugly moment. Because at least with bad moments, there's always something like, I mean, it was memorable in a way, like, with some sort of like historical comeback or whatever. But like that moment where, your team just got kicked to the turf and just could never seem to get off the ground, and they just kind of flatlined and died right then and there. But until then, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.